We had a slow news week. Only one coach got fired. A top 5 pick out for the year. We're going to talk about that and a lot more coming up next on the Draft Countdown Show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of the Draft Countdown Show. I'm your host, Brian Bosarge, and I am here to tell you that we are 161 days away from the 2026 NFL Draft. And if you want to talk about the NFL Draft, or you want to talk about the NFL, college ball, or anything else, head on over to the Draft Countdown Discord channel. There will be a link below. There is a nice, fun little QR code you can scan right there that'll tell you how to get there. Or you can go to draftcountdown.com, top right corner of the search bar. There's a link to join the Discord there. So come on in, have a good time with us. Like I said in the open, a slow news week this week. We only had one coach get fired, and that was the New York Giants. Turfing Brian Daboll there. He went 20-40-1 as the head coach of the Giants, 2-8 this season. Mike Kafka going to take over as the interim head coach. That now means that both teams that drafted a quarterback in the first round of the 2025 NFL Draft have fired their head coach. Kafka also announced that 2015 number 1 overall pick Jameis Winston, who was the number 3 quarterback for the Giants, has been elevated to the top this week over Russell Wilson and the concussed Jackson Dart, who will be out, but he'll resume starting once he's clears concussion protocol. But yeah, Daboll out. We'll see where the Giants go from here the rest of the way. Speaking of top picks in the draft this year, Travis Hunter, the number 2 overall pick for the Jacksonville Jaguars, the cornerback wide receiver, underwent season-ending knee surgery. He'll be back ready to go in 2026. The rare LCL tear for Hunter. Normally you see ACL, you see MCL, but the LCL here expected to return 6 months to full football activities. All right. Let's look back at week 11 and the prospects we watched a week ago. We mentioned we watched some oddball games, if you will, in week 11, but we had another week with more defensive standouts than offensive standouts. And I want to start by talking about Southern Miss cornerback Josh Moten, one of the many players that transferred to Southern Miss with head coach Charles Huff from Marshall. Moten had three of the 6, I believe it was 6 interceptions that Southern Miss had this past week in their win against Arkansas State. It might have been 5 interceptions, 5 or 6 interceptions against Arkansas State this past Saturday. Moten had 6 tackles, 3 interceptions, and a pass breakup in the Golden Eagles win over the Red Wolves. Southern Miss State's unbeaten in Sun Belt play. They have 3 games left. They're currently 7-2 on the season. So going to a bowl game after just a dismal last couple of seasons for USM. So glad to see that. And Texas Tech in their rout of BYU, the top 10 matchup last week, handily won by the Red Raiders Their linebacker, Jacob Rodriguez, another big game, another turnover forced by Rodriguez. He had 14 tackles in this game, 9 solos, a tackle for loss, and an interception against BYU's. Huge game for Rodriguez. Can he be a top 100 pick? We'll see. Depends on how many off-ball linebackers we get going there, but he's definitely going to go probably early on day 3. I think he's going to be probably at the Senior Bowl. I would hope to see him down there. It could be a fun guy to watch that week. Some other defensive notables this week. Alabama edge rusher Janze Pierre, the third-year player, continues to emerge. Had 2 sacks in their win against LSU and a forced fumble. Also in that game, LSU linebacker Harold Perkins continues to show that he can be a nice chess piece at the next level. 9 tackles, 5 solos, a sack, and a forced fumble in the loss to Alabama. And in that loss to Texas Tech, BYU linebacker Jack Kelly had a big game. 7 tackles, 5 solos, 2 sacks, and a pass breakup. Offensively this week, only one real standout, and we had another standout for the wrong reason. But South Florida quarterback Byron Brown, in their big win over UTSA on Thursday, 14 of 15 for 239 and 2 touchdowns. He also carried the ball 9 times for 109 yards and a touchdown. So a huge night for Brown in that win to keep their playoff hopes alive. And right now, they would be the top-ranked Group of 5 team in the playoffs according to this week's playoff rankings. All right, for the wrong reasons, LSU quarterback Garrett Nussmeier entered the season as a potential top 10 pick, was benched in the game against Alabama. Now, I'm not saying he was benched for inadequacy. He was 18 of 21 for 121. He wasn't, bad, but he wasn't great. I think they just tried to see if they could get a spark with their backup quarterback Van Buren, who came over from Mississippi State this offseason, much more athletic guy. I think they were trying to see if they could challenge Alabama that way. It didn't work. But Nussmeier benched in the third quarter. I haven't heard anything else if this was just like I said, if it was just a one-off or if he's on the bench the rest of the way. I don't know. But Nussmeier's going to get drafted this year. How high, I don't really know. I assume he's been battling injuries again this year, and that might be what pushes him down the board a lot. Is the word was he had some perhaps degenerative knee issues. And if that's the case, he might not even be draftable. We'll see what comes out. Usually that news comes out after the draft when a player that you's like, how could this guy fall so far? And then after the draft here, he had arthritis in his knee or his neck or something. So we'll see how that goes. All right, let's look ahead to week 12 of college football, and let's talk about some offensive linemen, right? That's always fun. That'll put asses in the seats, as they say. But week 12, look ahead this week. And again, we're going to hit some more obscure teams, some teams we haven't watched yet. Weeks 13 and 14, we're going to get back to the tried and true. But I just wanted to get my eyes on as many players as I could before we get into the bowl season, where I'll watch all of those games. But let's talk about 11 a.m. on CBS Sports Network. Air Force at UConn. UConn coming in hot. Upset win over Duke last week. They sit 7-3 on the season, the only one of 2 independent teams in the FBS besides Notre Dame. Watching this game mainly to see Huskies wide receiver Skylar Bell. Bell's a 5th-year player, 5'11", 186, leads the nation with 85 receptions this year and leads the nation with 13 touchdown receptions. He also has 1,081 receiving yards. Another interesting player that completely knew nothing about, but now I'm going to watch with open eyes this week is UConn quarterback Joe Fagnano. He's a 7th-year player, so been around the block a bit. 3 at Maine, I think 4 at UConn, or maybe 4 at Maine, 3 at UConn. Not sure, but dude has been around a long time. Anyway, completing 69% of his throws this year for 2,840 yards, 25 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. 0 interceptions and over 250 passing attempts this year. Jim Moore Jr., man, done a hell of a job at UConn. Air Force, you rarely see many prospects anyway from the service academies. Air Force has none to speak of, and they're not a very good team this year, 4-6 on the year. I anticipate they'll take an L this week, and there will be no bowling in Colorado Springs for the Air Force Academy. 11 a.m. on Fox Sports 1, Arizona at Cincinnati. We've watched the Bearcats at least once, maybe twice this year, but my first look at Arizona in 2025, and their quarterback, Noah Fafita, guy I've been tracking for a little bit now, had a quiet yet solid season so far. But my main focus in this game is going to be on the defensive side of the ball for the Wildcats, and that's safety Genesis Smith. A lot of buzz around Smith. Got 53 tackles this year, 23 solos. He's got a pick and 7 pass breakups. And while we're watching Genesis Smith, we'll also continue to monitor Cincinnati defensive players, linebacker Jake Golday and defensive tackle Dante Corleone. 2:30 p.m. ACC Network, Georgia Tech at Boston College. It's just been a terrible season so far for Bill O'Brien and his bunch, but they're winless in the ACC, 1-9 overall. And outside of offensive tackle Jude Bowery, they're pretty light on NFL talent. Georgia Tech got smoked 2 weeks ago by NC State, knocked them off their undefeated perch. They can still make the playoffs with an ACC title if they can survive this cluster of ACC teams. Right now, you have 7 teams that could legitimately win the ACC and make the college football playoff. That's 5-1 in the conference, 8-1 Georgia Tech, 5-1 in the conference, 8-2 Virginia, 5-1 in the conference, 7-2 Pitt, 5-1 in the conference, 7-3 SMU, 4-1 in the conference, 5-4 overall Duke. There is a chance Duke could win the ACC with a 7-5 record. 4-2 in the conference, Louisville, 7-2 overall. And despite being 7th on this list, the College Bowl Playoff Committee ranked Miami last night, despite their 3-2 in the conference, 7-2 overall. But they do have wins out of conference over Notre Dame and South Florida. Just some bad in-conference losses. 2:30 p.m. on the Big Ten Network, Iowa is at Southern Cal. Iowa almost pulled off a big upset last week against Oregon. Now they got to travel to the West, to the Coliseum to play the Trojans, as per usual with the Hawkeyes. The offensive line's where it's at. And it's led by potential first-round pick offensive tackle Jennings Dunker. He's the man you see to the left of my face right now with that beautiful head of cabbage there on top of his head. But Dunker may end up inside at the next level, depending on arm length, stuff like that. But he's a mauling finisher. He's a skilled pass blocker, dominant run blocker. They've got a pure center prospect in Logan Jones. I'm sorry, I wrote the wrong name down. Logan Jones, and he's a guard, I'm sorry. And the other player for Iowa is, hold on, let me find it. Is Bo Stevens. Bo Stevens may be the center. I can't remember. I wrote this down and then ended up putting the wrong name in the wrong spot. They also have another young pup at right guard, third-year player, Cade Piper. Piper was number 22 on the Feldman freak list. Logan Jones was 7th. Southern Cal sneaking around the periphery of the college football playoff. Their offense been tremendous. This week, with our focus on the Iowa offensive line, we're going to look closely at their defense, specifically their edge rushers, Braylon Shelby and Anthony Lucas, their linebacker, Eric Gentry, and their defensive tackles, Devin Tompkins and Keyshawn Silver. All 5 of those guys carry or could carry draftable grades. 9:30 p.m. on CBS Sports Network, Boise State's at San Diego State. Speaking of college football playoff contenders, San Diego State was one until they pissed down their leg last week against Hawaii. Now the Aztecs are going to battle Boise State for sole possession of first place in the Mountain West Conference and for what I believe will be a trip to the LA Bowl. Boise State offensive tackle Cage Casey is the top prospect for them. Aztecs cornerback Chris Johnson has garnered some top 100 buzz, so keep an eye out for him. All right, let's look at the NFL Draft Top 10 for this week. As always, brought to you by the good folk over at tankathon.com. And the Tennessee Titans have resumed possession of the number one pick because they are currently 1-8, the lone 1-8 team in the NFL right now. The New Orleans Saints, with their win over the Panthers, dropped to 2-8. And the Giants, currently also 2-8, but have a higher winning percentage. 3 teams at 2-7 occupy spots 4 through 6. That's the Cleveland Browns, currently at pick 4. The Jets at pick 5 after they won another game. Las Vegas, the Raiders at 2-7. They've lost 3 in a row. Currently 2 teams at 3-7. The Miami Dolphins, coming off a big upset over the Buffalo Bills. They're sitting at 7th now with 3-7. And the Washington Commanders, also at 3-7 after their blowout loss to the Lions Sunday afternoon. The Bengals fall a spot here to pick 9 with their off week, but they've lost 2 games in a row. Big game against the Steelers coming up this week. Also with news of Joe Burrow getting back earlier. We'll see. Going back to the Jets for a second, Brad Menendez had a nice full team mock draft for the Jets drop this week. So go check that out at draftcountdown.com, also on the YouTube channel. So where was I? Pick 10, and we're going to talk about more of this in a little bit, but the Los Angeles Rams, despite being 7-2 right now, are also in possession of the 10th overall pick by way of a trade with Atlanta. Like I said, we're going to get into that more in just a second. And then the Cardinals are also 3-6 at pick 11 as well. For a full first 2 rounds 1 and 2 of mock draft today, go to draftcountdown.com. Brian Lamb dropped a little knowledge on us this week with his first and second rounds. So go check that out, draftcountdown.com. All right, let's go to the Q&A section. And as always, if you would like to have your question answered on the show, QR code, link, draftcountdown.com, top right corner search bar. This is a Discord exclusive segment of the show, so you have to be a member of the Discord to get your question answered each week. Bubba asks, based on what we know now, who will be the 5 biggest busts or mistakes from this past draft? So, to narrow this down, that's a great question, by the way. Had to put a lot into this one, but I narrowed it down just the first round. So, it didn't go beyond the first round of the draft. But then I know the reason Bubba asked this question, I know why, is number 1 on the list, Atlanta trading a potential top 10 pick. Now, currently is 10th. Could go higher in the 2026 NFL draft to draft edge rusher James Pierce in the first round. This is after they had already drafted edge rusher Jalen Walker earlier in the first round. Now, while I think Pierce still has a chance to be really good, and he's starting to show good things on the field, that decision is really starting to look worse and worse by the day. And would not be surprised if both GM Terry Fontenot and Raheem Morris are on the way out at the end of this season. The whole Kirk Cousins and then drafted Michael Penix fiasco also not helping this entire situation. Number 2 on this list, because, you know, the Bengals, them not being aggressive enough. And they're never aggressive ever, which is a yearly problem. But last year now it really looks bad. When Walter Nolan, who fit the biggest need of the team, one of the highest upside players they could have drafted, goes one spot ahead of them, the Arizona Cardinals, and in his first game on Monday Night Football just dominates, blows up the Cowboys, and has just a tremendous game. Meanwhile, the Bengals, one pick later, drafted Shamar Stewart, who currently has 3 fewer solo tackles than wide receiver Jamar Chase. Yeah, I said it. Jamar Chase has 5 solo tackles on the year. Shamar Stewart has 2. Shamar Stewart also has as many sacks as I do for the Bengals this year, which is 0, which is 4.5 less than the amount of sacks he recorded as a collegian at Texas A&M in 4 seasons. I love drafting athletes, but I love drafting athletes with a production profile even more. This was a mistake to draft Stewart. And like I said, you didn't even have to give up. You wouldn't have had to give up a lot to move up to draft Nolan, and you failed. Or instead of double dipping at linebacker and drafting 2 linebackers that lead the league in missed tackles, Demetrius Knight, Gamecock, love him, and Barrett Carter, Clemson Tiger, not so fond of. But you drafted those guys in the 2nd, 4th round. Could have just drafted Jihad Campbell in the 1st round out of Alabama, and he's been having a really good season for the Eagles so far. Sometimes you just got to draft good players and not projects when you're a team that needs to hit on draft picks. Saw a stat earlier today regarding the Bengals. The last time the Bengals drafted a Pro Bowl defensive player was 2010. Without looking, I'm going to guess that was Geno Atkins. I could be wrong, but that sounds about right. They have not had another Pro Bowl defensive player drafted since 2010. And they almost let anybody into the Pro Bowl these days. So that's not good. I think, whether he gets in or not this year, I think DJ Turner is halfway through the season, the cornerback out of Michigan, who they drafted in the 2nd round a few years ago, is having a Pro Bowl season. Whether he gets there or not, I don't know, but it's not good. And they're not going to do shit about it because it's just who the Bengals are, and it disgusts me. Anyway, number 3, the Raiders drafted a running back at 6 instead of literally anything else that could have helped them last year. And I'm not taking a dump on Ashton Jeanty here. I think he's a really good player and was the best running back, I think, in last year's draft class. But don't draft running back in the 1st round. I feel the same way about the Chargers with Mary Hampton. Just don't do it. And just take him in the 2nd beyond and move on with life. Would the Raiders be in any worse shape had they drafted Quinshad Judkins or Travion Henderson in the 2nd round? Probably not. Probably not. They might still be 2-7, but they could have had somebody else that could have helped them at the 6th pick. Yeah, just don't draft running backs. And if you are, just don't do it in the damn top 10. Number 4, Jacksonville. Trading all those assets to Cleveland with clearly not having a consensus plan for how to use Travis Hunter this season. They changed it by the week on whether they got more snaps at corner or wide receiver. I mean, he's good. He's really good, super good player. But this was my whole problem with the eval of Travis Hunter is I just think he needs to pick a side and fully concentrate on that side instead of trying to play both in every game. Now he's out for the season. And Jackson, now while that pick right now is currently in the 20s, I believe. No, it's 19. So right now that pick sits at 19. And if Jacksonville falls out of the playoffs, Cleveland will have 2 top 20 picks in the upcoming draft. Good job by Cleveland to get those picks. And I think they've got another pick, a 2nd this year maybe. I'm not sure. But just all those picks. And they ended up with Mason Graham, who I think is going to be a really good player for them on their defensive front when they traded back. And last on this, Titans drafting quarterback Cam Ward at number 1, then firing their head coach and stunning his growth right out the chute. Ward was a top quarterback last year in a down year, but from the looks of things, it don't look so great in 2026 either. So I don't know. I don't foresee them bailing on Cam Ward here. You really just, I'm not saying you have to hire a head coach whose main goal is to make him make right, but you've got to do something. I don't know if you're going to bring in another offensive coach or defensive coach with a good OC and QB coach. Not sure, but I don't think they're going to pull a Cardinals here and draft a quarterback in the top 10 back-to-back years. So I expect them to go defense if they keep that top pick. But anyway, so hope that answered your question. I didn't want to really say bust to anybody because these guys some of them haven't even played 9 games yet. But those were 5 mistakes, I think, that were made that we can clearly see were mistakes, if not just damn fools right out of the go. All right, final thoughts this week. I ain't got a whole lot to add. Took the weekend off. Really, I had the stress-free weekend of no South Carolina, no Bengals games last week. I'll be back to sweating it out this week. And but yeah, hope everybody had a good last weekend. Hope everybody's having a good week, and I hope everybody has a good upcoming weekend, especially with all the holidays coming around. But with the news out of Dallas this week, I really hope, and I'm not making any comparisons to because my situation is completely different from every single other person's situation. But if you're struggling with mental health, man, just call people, man. Talk to people. There's people that want to help you. So don't feel like you're alone out there if you're having troubles. Make some calls. Text people. Man, people will help you. I promise. But yeah. So that's going to do it for this week's episode of the Draft Countdown Show. Remember, if you're new to the channel, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell in case we ever go live again. It might happen. We'll see. Thumbs up the videos and all that good stuff. And share it out with everybody. For everybody else at draftcountdown.com, I'm Brian Bosarts. See you next time.